Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business television podcast. After a chaotic end, the 2018 regular legislative session is in the books, but there's more to come. IU-led startups get a boost. Business is booming in Boone County. Cummins launches a landmark initiative for women. A new partnership targets opioid addiction. The ABA marks a major anniversary. And our panel of insiders takes on the top stories of the week. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. After a scramble to the finish, legislators have closed the books on the 2018 session of the Indiana General Assembly. Workforce and Sunday alcohol sales bills passed, while smoking age and township government consolidation bills failed. Indiana Chamber of Commerce President Kevin Breniger joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick with perspective on the bills and the possibility of a special session, which Governor Holcomb has since called.
It was described as chaos in those last several hours on Wednesday night. What happened?
Well, there were several important bills that the conference committee agreements were reached so late in the day and in the evening that there wasn't time to get them printed, copies made for legislators to look at, debates to occur on the floor, and so they just flat ran out of time. It was like watching a train wreck.
And there's some acrimony going back and forth.
There was acrimony on various things between leaderships and conferees, and I think that was part of the problem. Was in some cases things got kind of personal in a way that I haven't seen for a long time.
One of those measures would essentially align the state's tax code with new changes at the federal level. What are the chances there could be a special session?
Well, I think there are reasonable chances that there would be. I spoke to the OMB director this morning, and we both agree that this legislation is so important to tie our definition of adjusted gross income to the federal code, which has many changes because of the major tax reform that just took place in Washington. And so that's critically important. That will be up to the governor to decide. But I think if it happens, it'll happen sooner rather than later, if for no other reason than this tax bill. And then you've got 6 or 8 others where they were ready to be voted on, but they ran out of time, and some important things there as well.
All right, let's talk about some agenda items. Sunday alcohol sales, now the law of the state, so that exists. That happened this session. Workforce was a big issue for the governor, for the chamber, and others, and 2 bills passed. Yeah,
the 2 bills passed, Senate Bill 50 and House Bill 1002. Senate Bill 50, in the end, we were sort of ambivalent about, but House Bill 1002 contains some good provisions that will help high school counselors, will provide more training funds, and will make our workforce system more employer-driven and demand-driven.
Okay, so you feel good about the workforce. How about several technology measures, including the software as a service bill to align taxation on
it will clarify that software as a service activities are tax exempt in Indiana. There have been some inconsistent rulings from the Department of Revenue, and so we worked really all summer and then leading up through the session to get that legislation passed. A number of the members of the Chamber's Technology and Innovation Council were very helpful in bringing firsthand stories to the State House to help us pass that legislation.
And then also computer science classes mandatory, right, in high schools?
Yeah, there will be a mandatory offering. We think that's important to enhance and pursue our STEM goals and make kids more ready for college and career.
Missed opportunities that you and others talking about coming out of the session. One of them, and you feel strongly that health issues need to come into focus as a priority, raising the minimum age to 21. That's part of the agenda of the Alliance for a Healthier Indiana, which the Chamber is part of. We want to see the cigarette tax increase as well, because that will reduce the incidence of smoking, and particularly in young people if the price is higher. 5 states have raised their legal age, and that's important because most people who smoke throughout their lives start before age 21. Yeah, and you're going to continue to push for that?
Absolutely.
One more item, merging of small township governments. It's been talked about for a long time. Is it ever going to happen?
Well, I'm not sure. The structure we have currently now is incredibly wasteful and unnecessary. We had an unusual opponent on that one, and that was the Farm Bureau. It turns out many farmers serve as township trustees and serve on those boards, and in many cases, that's where they get their health insurance. But it's questionable that should happen at taxpayer expense.
Very quickly, you've been giving the last several sessions of the legislature good grades. What do you give this session?
Well, we have had a series of what I would call A grades. This one was not a good session for moving Indiana forward. I would say C+.
Okay. All right. Kevin Brininger, Indiana Chamber, thanks as always.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Still to come, big deals in Boone County, and Cummins commits to women in its workforce. But first, the Indiana University Research and Technology Corporation has launched a fund designed to support startup development by IU faculty, students, and staff. The $15 million IU Philanthropic Venture Fund could grow beyond $50 million. IURTC CEO Tony Armstrong and fund manager Terry Wiley came in studio to discuss the effort.
When this broke, I guess maybe about 2 weeks ago, I thought this sounds like a unique and pretty cool endeavor. The IURTC Philanthropic Venture Fund. Tony, talk about what it's all about.
Yeah, so this will give us, I call it sort of a pool of innovation capital, more a tool in a way for us to help our faculty members, researchers, innovators take their ideas from the bench to the bedside or from their labs and turn those into products. And so it'll give us not only the financial resources, but I think the unique part of this fund will be the ability for us to really engage deeply our IU alums from around the world.
So, and in terms of that, it's engaging them financially. They can contribute financially, but also in other ways in terms of mentoring and other connections.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Gary, here will be not only the financial contribution will be a tremendous help, but their expertise and their networks, their mentorship, their ability to help us vet technologies and find talent for these ideas. So bringing that expertise and bringing those folks back to the state and really getting them a part of what we're doing and all that's happening here in the state, that's going to be, I think, the biggest value of this fund.
Yeah. Terry, you're an accomplished fund manager coming into, and we're glad to have you back in the state now. You've managed funds in this country and abroad. What attracted you to this opportunity?
Well, it's a chance to come back home, but also it's just a really great opportunity to launch this type of fund in Indiana. It's a unique fund in some ways, but in many ways it's a very traditional seed fund in that we're looking for opportunities that we can put in the position to attract smart money in management and put in a position to be successful in Indiana and in the world. And what's different about it is that it's an evergreen fund. And so that means that when we do have an equity realization, when we are successful in those investments and that company is acquired or goes public or our equity is realized in some other way, we put those returns back into the fund for additional investment. So for those contributors, for those alums who donate to the fund, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, what kind of investments are you going to be targeting, are you be looking for? I think you're leaving here to talk to a potential candidate. What are you going to be looking to invest in?
Well, in two general areas. So we'll invest in both the life science area and the physical science area or information technology area. But we're looking at things that are at a stage where proof of principle may still be needed. Some additional work needs to be done in order for us to attract the other resources in, both money and management. And we are looking for very much Indiana University-centric opportunities. So things that those discoveries or inventions were made at Indiana University, or there's some other strong Indiana connection.
Yeah, and Tony, this does really continue what is a heritage at Indiana University of investing and supporting innovation.
We've had a number of successes in the life sciences area with Marcadia, with learning management and angel learning, Assembly Biosciences, a number of opportunities that we've been able to fund internally a bit and bring outside funding to. I think this fund will help us accelerate that and really help us then tee these up for the next level fund that the state has just put together, the Rise of the Rest funds that are available now to us, and other funds that are starting to visit the state that will now be a feeder for those.
As we wrap up, a $15 million fund now, but you really feel there's an opportunity to grow substantially.
The response that we've had a chance to meet with a number of alums and have calls set up. It's been outstanding, the response that we've had to that. So we feel like we'll be able to raise that and hopefully a little bit more.
All right, very good. The IURTC Philanthropic Venture Fund will be following the story. Tony Armstrong, also Terry Willie, thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Later in the podcast, Cummins powers women, and the state again sets its sights on the opioid epidemic. But now, the economic arrow has been pointing up in Boone County in recent years, and it doesn't look like things are slowing down. The Boone County EDC says the county attracted close to $200 million in investment and 1,800 job commitments last year. Executive Director Molly Whitehead joined IIB to talk about keeping the momentum going.
I mentioned the numbers. 2017 was a big year in Boone County. 14 companies, 1,800 job commitments. In your view, what's really driving this momentum?
So I think where we're geographically located, great proximity right along 65, but we also have 74 and easy access to 465. But I think that also drives the workers that we're able to bring into the community. We have access to Lafayette and Indianapolis both, so people can reasonably drive and work within a close distance.
Good. Well, let's talk about a couple of the recent announcements. These are 2018. Already had three big announcements. IBC Coatings is an expansion, nearly $5 million investment, right?
Yeah, IBC's been a longtime tenant in the Lebanon area. They do quite a bit of U.S. government work, and we've just been thrilled to see the pattern that they've been growing.
Another company originated in Northwest Indiana, big name there, Monosol, and they're going to locate a major facility there in Boone County. Talk about that investment, and it's
Sure.
a plastics investment. You know, these pods that we see out a lot is part of that process.
Yeah, so Monosol, they have numerous facilities throughout the state of Indiana. They're an internationally owned company, and they manufacture the film that makes those Tide Pods that we all see. They've seen enormous growth in that market around the world even, and so we're just thrilled to have them choose Lebanon and help us be able to highlight our community.
Sectors that you're looking to really focus on, what are your key cluster areas?
So we look within manufacturing, but specifically within that, ag, auto, plastics, and food and beverage. And then we also take a look at IT industry. We've got a growing IT sector in the Zionsville area. And then we also look at headquarters and back office opportunities, also again a good fit for Zionsville and Whitestown both.
Yeah, you talk about the food and drink cluster. Interesting, Ken's Foods made a big announcement some months ago. The Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, which I like, and the like. So that's a real growth area you see is that food and beverage area.
Yeah, we saw with the Ken's announcement, that was a very large deal for the city of Lebanon a year or so ago, but that made number 5 within the Lebanon Business Park alone of food and beverage companies. Then you add in a couple of others that are located within Boone County. We've started to draw some names there.
The infrastructure, people talk about that. Obviously, the highway system close by, but if I recall, the Ken's Foods deal was really driven by a rail investment and a partnership that got some great rail service there.
Yeah, that's a CSX Select site there in the Lebanon Business Park. So we have done due diligence for years on that property, and it's completely ready to go for those users. One of the very few in the state.
And what's going to be key for growth? You look at Boone County, and you've obviously got Lebanon and Whitestown and Zionsville. You've got all these different entities with companies growing there. What's going to be key to continued growth?
We really are focusing on quality of life, developing our communities, making sure that we have places where people want to live and work, because we know that ultimately will drive the people in those companies that may want to choose to locate here.
All right, Molly Whitehead, the Executive Director of the Boone County EDC. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations on the success. We'll look forward to more stories going forward.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, the latest weapon in the opioid battle and a party to celebrate the ABA's last dance. But first, Columbus-based Cummins has detailed what it calls a landmark community initiative in hopes of boosting the impact of women and girls on the world. Cummins Powers Women is a multi-million-dollar global effort. Reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more.
Through the creation of Cummins Powers Women, the global engine maker says it not only is advancing its long-term commitment to the empowerment of women and girls around the world, but hopes to set an example for other international corporations to follow suit.
We hope that it does send a message, not only that women and girls are important to global economies and their advancement is the advancement of all of us, but also that this is an important thing for the private sector to invest in. It's a win-win. When our communities are strong, our business is strong. And if more companies would jump on board to focus their investment in their work in women and girls, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Cummins Chairman and CEO Tom Linebarger tells me this is the biggest initiative the company has ever funded, investing $10 million over the next 3 years.
We're putting money behind some of the best nonprofit partners we could find in the world. We did more than a year of research to figure out who are the people doing the best stuff around the world to make sure we're getting the best of them, and we're also using the best of Cummins to help them do their work. The time's now. We can see that everywhere. The world needs to start taking the opportunity to improve the lives of women and girls in order to improve our society overall. Because we're just not using all the talent and resources in our communities, in our companies, in our world. We're using half of them. But we are committed to hiring, retaining, developing talent wherever we can find it. And I know that if we're looking only in one gender, one race, one religion, we are not going to succeed. So for us, women are 50% of that talent, and our intention is to have 50% of our salaried workforce be women. That's our goal, and the reason we want to do that is because that's how we're going to get the best talent.
Mary Rachel Rudman, Inside Indiana Business.
Later in the podcast, the ABA marks a major anniversary, and our panel of insiders weighs in on the week's top stories. But now, the state has a new tool it says will help Hoosiers seeking treatment for drug abuse issues. Indiana has launched a partnership with Open Beds, a software platform that helps connect those in need with available treatment. Indiana Family and Social Services Administration Secretary Jennifer Walthall detailed the partnership with Barb Lewis in the Business of Health.
So this is a big announcement, so I'm not quite sure where to start, but let's talk about the beds themselves then. So what does this program, what impact will this program have on the opioid crisis in terms of residential beds?
So we've spent much of 2017 expanding the capacity for inpatient and residential services in Indiana. In fact, 26% increase just this year, bringing us to a total of about 1,008 beds that are available for individuals who have a substance use disorder issue and need treatment in that capacity. What this does is serves as really the command center to make sure that we're connecting individuals at their time of need 24/7, 365 to those available bed services. We've never really had that global look at what our capacity is in real time. And so this solves that issue and helps us really connect individuals right when they know they're ready for treatment to the right treatment at the right time.
In that window of opportunity. So give us a little idea of how this would work. I was thinking of somebody who needs help in Rensselaer, for example, but they're looking for beds, and a bed might be available in Evansville.
Absolutely. So we designed this system really to meet the needs of what we would call our worst case scenario. Okay. So someone who arrives in an emergency department at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday after an opiate overdose and realizes, I need to make a change. How can I do that? And asks for help. So this system is available to connect that person in the emergency department through their provider to any opening throughout the state and gets rid of the barriers of calling or faxing or places not being open and allows that connection to be made in real time without the barrier of potentially geography or insurance provider getting in the way of that person being connected. And so we're very excited about the growing network, both of referring providers and then also referred to mental health providers that can help that individual in their point in time of need. Additionally, this gives a tool to physicians, social workers, other healthcare providers who have been frustrated that they haven't been able to help the person who's sitting right in front of them to get to their need. So we're very excited about really giving them and enabling them to have a tool to really help with the opiate crisis.
Okay, so I've been asking about the beds, but this is much more than that. So give us a refresher on Indiana 211 and what all this new program will be able to provide.
So the real innovation here is not just the software, but it's the fact that it's embedded within Indiana 211, which has hundreds of referral processes to different capacities such as transportation, housing, food security, education opportunities, employment, that really take that next step and the human touch of getting into treatment and then what's next to maintain that recovery. What are the things that are going to help that individual find what they need to do next to get their life back.
Okay, you came here right from making the announcement. When will this be fully operational? When will this begin?
We are live.
Okay.
So this is open today, ready for referrals. In fact, We had a soft open earlier this week and had a successful referral. The feedback that we got was that it was the easiest thing they'd ever done.
Good.
And so we know that we have a process that's working. We have gone through several months of a pilot here in central Indiana, and we know that our referral times are drastically reduced as they use this software, and that as our network grows, those referrals that are successfully placed grow day by day.
Okay, and before we run out of time, briefly, next steps then to this.
Next steps are expanding outside of Medicaid and also outside of inpatient and residential to outpatient, regardless of insurance type, and everywhere in the state.
All right, well, thank you, and best wishes on this.
Thank you.
Still to come, perspective on the biggest stories of the week from our Insiders panel. But first, a celebration next month will mark the 50th anniversary of the American Basketball Association, with all proceeds going to the Dropping Dimes Foundation, which helps former ABA players in need. Bob Costas and Slick Leonard are among the big names who will be there. Former Pacer Darnell Hillman and Dropping Dimes Foundation CEO Scott Tarter spoke with Bill Benner in Inside Indiana Sports.
Scott, let's talk with you. We know the why, the Dropping Dimes Foundation, but how did this all come together originally?
Well, it actually goes back to our good friend Mel Daniels. And back about 4 or 5 years ago, Mel talked to us all the time about how some of the ABA guys had been somewhat forgotten and weren't necessarily being respected or cared for as they should be. And several of the players from the former ABA Pacers and some fans, some mega fans, got together. My good friend John Abrams and I had decided to go ahead and form the entity formally, and Dropping Dimes took off in 2014.
And a big extravaganza on April 6th and 7th, with the primary event being at Bankers Life Fieldhouse on April 7th. It's going to be a huge weekend.
I'm starting to feel like a kid in a candy store. I mean, we have over 100 of these former players who are going to be there. I mean, it's exceeded our wildest expectations at this point.
And Darnell, you get to encounter some of the guys that you dunked on, right?
Absolutely.
But you know that you've experienced the plight of some of these guys from the ABA days, and a lot of them have had difficult times.
They certainly have, and this event is certainly going to bring a lot of light to that. And one of the things I think is unique about this is the ABA was always like a family, just like the Indiana Pacers team was. And the fact that we're still willing to rally behind and get together to support something like this, I think it's going to be a great cause. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Scott, and again, what a lineup. Just starting with our own, Darnell, Bobby Leonard, obviously a three-time champion, Bob Nedelecki, George McGinnis, I mean, it's a great lineup.
George Gervin will be here, Dr. J will be here, they're all confirmed. Dan Issel, all of Darnell's nemesis from the Kentucky Colonels, Artis Gilmore, Louis Dampier, out of Southport, they'll all be here.
How'd you get Bob Costas? He had virtually immediate buy-in, wanting to be involved. Of course, for those of you who don't know, Bob Costas started out as the play-by-play guy with the Spirits of St. Louis.
He's been probably the most pleasant surprise of all. He has been such a brother throughout this process. You know, I mean, I got very nervous when I first dealt with him. Some of the guys gave him my contact information. He reached out. I quickly learned he just cares about the ABA, he cares about the history, he cares about the players, and he certainly cares about the cause. He's been very involved in this process.
Darnell, talk about the guys that you've talked to or are coming back, and I know there's great enthusiasm on their part.
Oh yeah, we've got quite a few. Actually, I was speaking with several friends about Iceman's coming back, getting confirmation on him coming. The thing that we're looking forward to are the stories. You know, the fish that jump clean over the boat. Once these guys get together here, these stories are going to start floating out of the world. Spoke to some of my teammates here in town that are looking forward to getting together with some of this. Just had a conversation with Tom Thacker. Tom's going to be here. Jerry Harkness will be here equally as well. So we're all excited.
Big autograph show that'll take place at Hinkle
Fieldhouse. It's from 11 a.m. until 3 o'clock on Saturday, April 7th.
And lots of memorabilia as well.
We'll have trading cards, memorabilia. Kids under 14 are welcome to come for free. It'll be a $10 admission for the general public. There's plenty of room for everyone to come. And we have over 100 players who will be receiving commemorative rings at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Mayor Hogsett will be passing those out. And we have over 33 first-year ABA players who will be there to autograph. And those are unusual autographs to get.
That's terrific. Tickets, tables and tickets available for the Saturday night event. How can they?
Absolutely. They're going very quickly, but you can still pick up tables, better for corporate sponsors, but you can pick those up at our website at droppingdimes.org. You can also get individual seats Same location, our website, droppingtimes.org.
All right. Well, Scott Tarter, Darnell Hillman, great to have you guys on the show. We look forward to April 6th and 7th. Gary, before we go back to you, rumor has it that you had a significant 0 birthday this week.
Oh my goodness!
And so, as a present, Victor and the fellows wanted to present you with an autographed
Bill,
team ball.
thank you very much. Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you to the Pacers as well, and thank you guys. Look forward to this event. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Okay.
And finally this week, our latest group of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week's panel includes IndiePolitics.org publisher Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Beck Communications President Laura Beck, and Axis Architecture and Interiors founding partner Drew White.
We'll start with the legislative session, the short session wrapped up middle of the week this week. Abdul, you were there.
Middle of the week and middle of the night.
Middle of the night, right, and really ended with some fireworks, right? Describe what happened since you were there.
Well, in a nutshell, I mean, they're like college students in the sense that everybody like to wait till the last day, or the last hour, the last minute to get things done, and literally they did.
Right.
And by the time midnight struck, there were about 4 or 5 bills that were still out there that just couldn't get done. These were bills that went to tax credits, things that went to school safety initiatives, and a few other things. Now, some things that a lot of folks weren't crazy about also sort of died on the vine, but it sort of raised the question, Republicans have a supermajority, can they govern, why couldn't they get everything done? Well, first of all, in retrospect, the House got about 95% of what they set out to do. The Senate got about 99% of what they set out to do. So you have to keep this in perspective, and they can still possibly come back for a special session. There are some things that the governor can probably do administratively as well. So it was a late night. People were cranky. They hadn't gone to bed, and so they were just having a bad evening.
Yeah. Laura, as you look at what got done or didn't get done, your big takeaway.
Those are really good talking points. You did a really good job. I'm very, very proud of you.
That's why I wrote them.
I know. Well, the thing about this session, which was really interesting, is there just seemed like there were a lot of missed opportunities, and especially when you saw how it ended. It sure didn't wrap it up with a bow at the end. And I think anytime you have to come back and say there's things we can do administratively, we can have a special session, particularly after a short session, is not a positive piece to it. Mm-hmm. So there were some missed opportunities, particularly as you look at, I think, the opioid epidemic. I think there was a bit of an expectation going into the session that this would be really one of the key things they would deal with. The other piece as well is some of the high-profile legislative pieces, such as the Firefly, no offense to the grade school kids who wanted to get this designation, as well as eyeball tattooing, Sunday sales. I mean, that's great, but at the same time, we have some real critical issues in the state, and I just don't know how far we got down the road on that.
Yeah, workforce was certainly on the governor's agenda and many others a big issue. 2 bills, I think, did pass. Don't know, varying opinions on how far they went to really address the issue. But Drew, as a business owner, an executive here, as you look at the issue like workforce and like some of the technology-related legislation, mandating computer science classes and the like, why, in your view, is that important?
Well, I think we're having challenges with finding good employees to come to Indianapolis to work for architectural practices. We're all calling each other as firms, asking about candidates. I think the other thing that is very important to all of us, we're designing smarter buildings. We need employees to work on those kinds of projects, and we need the construction industry to be able to build those kind of projects. So I think the workplace initiatives are important. We have to continue to be better at it, though.
Yeah. Laura, in workforce, do you think it's such a big issue?
It is a big issue, and it's something we've been talking about for a long, long time. I mean, this spans back several governors. And so it just seems like we can't seem to really figure out what to do. And at the same time, we're losing out on it. And when you have Republican legislators on one side, the chamber and the manufacturers on another, that really should be a group that is really working cohesively. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a ways to go.
One other issue that didn't get through, Abdul, probably shouldn't turn to you on this. You're a cigar aficionado. Raising the smoking age to 21, and that was a priority issue for the state's largest business advocacy group, the state chamber. They feel strongly that these health issues are hurting the state. That didn't go through. The Farm Bureau, never mind. But some of the folks who opposed that, there were a lot of people who thought it was going to happen. Raising the age to 21, it didn't happen.
Part of it is sort of that that either somebody's 18 years old, if they can get a credit card, they can get married, they can join the military, die for their country, they should be able to go buy a pack of cigarettes at 18 years old. One of the things that the speaker did say he would look at was issues of regarding smoking. When State Representative Charlie Brown sort of retired, that said she would have been a big advocate for some of these anti-smoking, anti-tobacco measures. They would have a study committee look at raising the age, look at raising the tax, see what the impact would be, on that particular issue. Now, my libertarian streak in me says, hey, if somebody's an adult, they're an adult, and we treat them like an adult, they can make adult decisions. I think the better way to do it is public information campaigns to reduce, people engaged in tobacco cessation, as long as you leave my cigars alone.
Laura, do you think the chamber said they're going to continue to push for this? Other groups obviously will too. Do you think it ultimately?
I think we have to. I think we have to, especially when we start looking at the public health cost of this, and the fact that Indiana is one of the top states for death by cancer and heart attack and diabetes. I think that we really have to move in this direction, because it is such an important quality of life issue, but it's also a major economic drain.
We're involved in lots of health and wellness projects across the state, and if you look at smoking, it's one of the biggest causes for a total health bad experience. So I think it's important we raise the age.
Do you sense, as you look around the state, that there's an acceptance of this health being a big issue and a business issue?
Yes. We did some work for Cummins on a new Live Well Center in Columbus, Indiana, and one of the things they're trying to do is have this total approach to your wellness, and I think smoking leads to some of the problems that we have.
Yeah. Shifting gears, as we look around the state, first of all, the state's unemployment rate ticked lower again to 3.3% in January. And if you look outside of central Indiana, communities like Kokomo, East Central Indiana is touting some jobs numbers. Drew, I'll start with you. Do you see Kokomo, for example, Greg Goodnight, the mayor there, and some others, they have some initiatives going on focused on quality of life, quality of place, and trying to keep people there and attract people there. You see that as gaining momentum?
We've done some work for Mayor Goodnight. He wants to bring the downtown alive again. We've worked on a mixed-use project for him. We've worked on public safety projects for him. I think they're trying to follow a little bit of the Carmel and Fishers model in terms of creating new energy, walkable communities, building real communities in their downtowns.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're seeing a lot of these cities, such as Kokomo, Fort Wayne, Muncie, South Bend, they're really on the rise. And the fact that the regional economic development partnerships are doing so well and are making an impact too really speaks to that importance of collaboration and cooperation. And I think that the cities, what you're finding too in a place like Kokomo or in a Fort Wayne or even a South Bend, is they really are finding unique and creative partnerships. And they're thinking outside of the box, particularly when it comes to attracting young residents, capitalizing on their strengths. I think you're seeing a lot of that moving in the right direction.
And just to think about this for a moment, 10, 12 years ago, this whole concept of regionalism would have been basically a four-letter word. Your former boss, Bars Peterson, and we were talking before we went on the air today, talked about working with, Hamilton and Hancock County. People were like, no, back off. Now there's no way you could imagine any of them. Amazon would not be possible to be in the running had we all not been working together.
Speaking of working together and working in particular in Marion County, the pothole issue has certainly been a big one. And in fairness, tough winter, the freezing temps and the warm and all the various things that go into that. Some new funding, emergency funding, if you will, coming into play from the City County Council, $14.5 million for pothole repairs. How's this whole thing, in your view, Abdul, been handled?
Here's you got a problem when people who normally don't talk about politics ask me about politics and what's wrong with the mayor and what's wrong with these potholes. If you're talking to like a server at a restaurant or somebody at the grocery store, I mean, these are the things, these are those bread and butter issues, that people pay attention to. Now, with all due fairness to the mayor and his people, we have had, one day it's 50 degrees, other day it's 50 below, but still, this is what you got elected for. This is basic blocking and tackling. This is what you do, and you take the credit or the blame for it, because guess what? You're in charge. You guys have had it for 3 years. You own it. Fix it.
Yep. All right, we've got to shift gears. We have 2 minutes left. We get outside of Indianapolis. The USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, awarded $276 million in loans to support electric infrastructure in rural communities. Got a chunk of that, $74 million in Jackson County. Rural broadband is a huge issue.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And we've talked about those reports before about how there are parts in this state where you still cannot access the internet. And as we're moving to more of a web-based learning module for anyone who wants to advance their education, get more training in the workforce area or even high school, we have to have that. So this is really important to move this forward.
This weekend, the Children's Museum debuts $35 million Riley Children's Health Sports Legends Experience. Now, Drew, you have some various opinions on that.
I'm excited about it. I'm a longtime Children's Museum visitor with our 15-year-old son, and I think that this is providing sort of an exercise approach to visiting the museum. And I also think that it's going to be approached by all kinds of different types of children, so it's exciting.
Museums here really doing different things to keep vibrant.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you all, one and all. Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Laura Beck, and Drew White for a great edition of the Insiders.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.